Welcome to Retail Retold, the stories behind how that store landed in your neighborhood. I'm Chris Ressa, in conversation with the people and stories shaping retail and real estate. Brought to you by DLC. Welcome to Retail Retold, everyone. Today I am joined by Anya Wolf. Anya is the Managing Director of Portfolio Management at DLC. I'm excited for her to be here. Welcome to the show, Anya.
Thanks, Chris. Happy to be here.
Anya, for those who don't know, tell us a little bit about who you are.
So first and foremost, I am Anya Wolf, maiden name Ifshin, so I am Adam's daughter. I not real estate connected. I grew up in Westchester, New York, still live here today. I'm married, have a family of 3 kids. They're young still. But yeah, that's who I am.
Cool. All right.
Mhm.
So you have an interesting real estate journey. So
Mhm.
take us a little bit back because your career started in art, not in real estate. So take us back to like you went to college, what you thought you were going to do, and then your transition to real estate.
Yeah. So I went into college as an art studio major, and then also fell in love with art history. So I was a double art history and studio art major. Studio art being like actually making art, and the medium that I worked most frequently in was sculpture, and I did a couple of different things in that, but worked a lot in ceramics. So that's how I started in doing art. Um, from there, I told everybody that like I loved art, still love art, and just wanted to be able to do something in that field every day. So I never had plans to go into the real estate business. Um, Even though I was around it my whole life. And then through that, and in my college experience, from about junior year through graduation, I had a different internship basically every semester. So I did things like I worked in a gallery, I worked for an art fair. I tried to do, and like, I dabbled in a couple of different things. And then when I graduated, I was hired by an art non-for-profit, and loved to work there and had some exposure into like education, the education system, and bringing art into there. And I really liked my time in that, but it was a very hard field to get into. And if you wanted to have any sort of like serious stake in the art world, you needed your master's, which required to speak like 3 different languages and a ton of schooling, which I didn't want to go back into doing. But was happy where I was going. And then my grandfather, Steve, who was part of DLC and in the business, he died in 2016. And it was like devastating for the family, and I was very involved in the family aspect, and I knew it was hard for DLC, but I didn't, know the extent. And after he died, we like sat as a family and talked about what this meant from family investments and how it was intertwined with DLC. And so it was at this right crossroads for me for this to happen, because I realized I couldn't get to where I wanted to be in the art world, unless I committed to like the next 15 years, like being a student and like a slave to the industry. And not knowing enough about real estate, it made it very nerve-wracking for me going into this next chapter with my family, because we had nobody really in the family that understood DLC, the investments that we made. And personally, I know that the best way that I learn is through doing things and like having a physical presence and touch on it. So basically, like while we were all talking at this dinner table discussion, I mentally had made the decision that I'm going to ask my father to be in the family business so that I could learn and understand our investments. He was absolutely like shocked when he found this out, because he never thought any of his children would want to be in the business. It's actually really funny. The day that I told him we used to have lunches because I worked in White Plains and he worked in Elmsford, and like every once, I would say like once a month, we would be like, "Do you want to get lunch?" And he'd meet me and we'd have lunch together. And so that's how I arranged to have this discussion with him. And I get to the restaurant. I'm waiting like 10 minutes go by. No word from him. No. And he completely forgot about the lunch. Um, and he's like frantically racing. He's like coming and I'm like, oh my God, this is like the biggest thing that I'm going to tell him. And he forgot to show up.
Oh my God.
He ended up, like, making it, but, like, I had, like, an hour lunch break like everybody else does, and so, like, by the time he made it, we had, like, 25 minutes, and, like, it just, like, up and threw it at him, and he was, I think, in shock. He was very happy about it, but totally in shock. And then from there, it took about, like, 2, 3 months. I went through the same process that we do for every single person at DLC. I had interviews, I did we do small little tests and that sort of thing. So I had a very, normal DLC hiring process in where was that? Like 2016, 2017, and got hired at an entry level job in transactions.
Cool. That was a great story. So, going back a little bit, can you tell everybody what did you do? What was your job in the art world?
Um, oh my gosh. When I was hired out of college, I think my title was assistant to arts education or something like that. I There were a couple of like pro art program directors, and they managed a subset of local artists that they would then get grants to put into lesser public school districts that needed the support, and a lot of the districts that are like stripping out the arts in all its forms to save on costs, or because um, different areas of the school need to take that funding or what would have been funding for that and provide it in other capacities. So I would help organize like those subset of artists and work to place them in the school districts, and different like teachers to fit like what that age cohort wanted and needed.
Got it. And how long did you do that before you moved into real estate?
About a year. But can't remember how long. I worked for a gallery for like, it felt like 6 months-ish. And then I had another internship. So at the gallery, it was a lot of trying to sell artwork and then like hanging and organizing and cataloging and that sort of thing, before that. And then I did a small, like 3, 4 month stint in, art fairs, which was eye-opening, um, but that wasn't what I wanted.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so you came to DLC and you mentioned you came to the transactions department. What were you doing when you arrived at DLC? What was work like for you?
So I was a transactions due diligence coordinator. So it was a lot of organizing files, sending files, receiving files, answering due diligence questions. It was like your pretty typical like office job. Um, there were It was a little bit more fast-paced, especially with the transactions side of things. Everything that we say we do in transactions is faster paced, and the timelines are more constricting. So that was an exciting aspect of it, but for all intents and purposes, it was like coming into a day job and answering questions and learning as much as possible about properties and that sort of thing.
So when you came in, what was something about either DLC or the real estate space that really surprised you that maybe you thought you knew, but you didn't? And without being inside the organization, you wouldn't have known?
I I don't know if I had any preconceived notion of, like, even what each group in the organization did. I really was separated from our family business, and, like, we didn't grow up knowing how even, like, a property functioned or, like, what like, um we've always done a lot of, like, value add and or, like, even just having to learn that concept, like, I didn't go to school for any of that. Not to say that's the only place you can learn those sorts of things, but I fully learned basically everything that I know about real estate on the job. Um, like, I knew Adam and Steve always talked about like leasing deals and like I knew leasing was the thing that like drove the bus, but in what capacity? I don't know if I could have said 10 years ago, even 15, 10 years ago. So learning the total inner workings of like what we do, what goes into putting a tenant in place, why I really was fascinated with when I stepped in, like why tenants wanted to be in certain locations versus others, mainly because that's how I could easily relate to things because from the consumer aspect, because I've always been a consumer at a lot of these tenants and a lot of shopping centers. So understanding why tenants wanted to be where they were was kind of like always fascinating to me and where I tried to like uncover more, even though that wasn't like my realm of day-to-day job.
And do you have any like aha takeaways of now about why tenants end up where they end up?
I feel like it's not solely monetarily like or monetary, but and I guess I'm not surprised that that's the way it is, but I'm still frustrated with that. Like I can get frustrated like that certain tenants aren't where I live to be a consumer all the time, and I'll constantly be like, "Why can't I have a Hobby Lobby in my backyard?" And I know the reason, and it's because of that a lot of the rents and the TIAs don't line up for them to be in my center down the road from me, or even like a little ways away. So it's still surprising to me because like I feel like the consumer would be there for a lot of um tenants that aren't where I am specifically, and it's all because of money.
Sure. Yeah. They feel the demographics that
Yeah,
they know work for them don't aren't the sales and the economics of what a deal would look like don't line up with what the demographics or psychodemographics would be in a certain market. We deal with this a lot where consumers in a certain market think that they should have X and X
totally.
tenant doesn't necessarily want to be in that market. Yeah. Is there is there something that when you came into real estate that clicked for you earlier than maybe it does for other people?
Um, I don't know if there's a specific concept, but it was, and it still is much easier for me to go and ask, whether it's Adam or other leaders that were higher up at my entry point than I think anybody else in the organization. And I didn't stand on ceremony in any aspect. Like I always asked. And because Adam is my father, it almost sometimes was easier to ask him than other people because stepping in and being a child of an owner or a leader of a company, people actually expected me to have had education in this or had, if it wasn't in the classroom education, to have education on the side from him. And that wasn't the case. And people just like automatically assumed I knew things that I really didn't, even after explaining, like, I've never been in the business, I've never worked in real estate. So people automatically assumed certain concepts, but then I would always ask and like I constantly tried to absorb as much as I could from what I would say, not just Adam, but other like safe leaders that I felt like weren't going to look down on asking those certain questions. I think it helped then because I felt like I almost had direct lines to people that had a lot of experience and knowledge to get up to speed faster, and my growth increased exponentially because of that.
Ah, cool. Good answer. So if you were to go back, knowing what you know now, and you were to go back to when you first started, what would you do differently?
I don't know if I would do that much differently.
Okay.
Um, I really I enjoyed every aspect. Have I worked for I haven't always worked for like my favorite people ever, but those experiences have truly allowed me to grow in other ways. I've learned things I don't want to do. I've learned things I have wanted to do. Um, I really wouldn't change my experience. Like, could I sit here and say, like, yeah, I wish I probably took like a real estate course or like could like or listened more to market trends in the beginning and that sort of thing. But even then, my background has given me a much different lens into my job and into what we look at than anybody else. And I find immense value in that. I think the organization finds immense value in that. I don't think I would change anything.
Okay, good. No regrets. That's good. Um, how about recently? Is there anything in the last 12 to 18 months that you've learned that you didn't know in the prior years past? You've grown a lot, you're doing a lot of different things. What about recent learnings? How about the last 12 to 18 months?
Um, Recent learnings and like outward projection learnings, I would say, is that I don't think I've like mastered where I am. I never feel that way. I've grown a lot in DLC, but I do feel like the next and the start that or the place where I'm starting to try and develop more is to get more to um other groups and people and create better connections externally, and find people that are of similar mindset or in similar placement and like really grow that network for myself because I've been focused so internally and process driven and actual like asset driven throughout my career so far. Um, I've been starting to look externally and trying to get more knowledge externally and more connections and relationships externally, to hopefully not only better myself, but to bring that back to people in the organization to like learn things and have a different mindset.
Cool. Building that external network, I promise will pay dividends. So let's move to the market for a second, right? You have a unique lens. What's your take on the retail real estate market right now?
Um, I think that it's still very hot. I always think though that there's a place for retail real estate, and whether different forms of equity or lenders feel the same at a certain moment in time, may change and fluctuate. I still think it's really strong. We see that on the tenant side that it's really strong right now still. I'm hoping it doesn't slow down with a little bit of the market changes in oh my gosh, in the lending world. A little disruption usually does well for DLC as a whole. We usually can find an avenue and a way to make things happen more than a lot of our competitors, in my opinion. So a little disruption can sometimes do us a real, uh, it can be really of service to us. So I'm hoping that that shines through in in this little bit of, I don't want to say market fluctuation, but the increase in, interest rates and or the unsteadiness of the interest rates right now.
Yeah, we've thrived in disruptive markets for sure, and obviously the geopolitical tensions are causing the markets to react right now, and hopefully, to your point, there's opportunity in that for DLC. Um, is there anything that you come from the art world and you have a different, unique lens that you're like, I don't understand why we do it this way in this industry?
Um, there are moments in time where I'm like, this is a very archaic way of doing things. So I don't know if it's like we need to like as an industry as a whole, and like if you ask me to pinpoint something, I don't know if I could say like something exactly, but it feels like sometimes we do things very in like the old school mindset. Whereas
Sure.
like when I was in the art world, it was like very closely related to like avant-garde new, trying to be the next new thing and like almost being so out there that it's weird before it's like adopted. It, the real estate market,
Yeah, we don't do that.
no, we are so like the last ones to the party on anything, whether it's like tech or um conferences or like I mean like we really like it took COVID for us to get into like video calls. Like that is not what the art world's about. Like they're about like pushing those boundaries way more than staying in the safe zone sometimes of real estate.
Got it. Is there anything out there that you think right now, uh, the market has wrong? Like, they're seeing it the wrong way, like, where Anya's seeing the world and, like, the market's seeing it differently, and you think they've got it wrong?
Um, I mean, I'm in transactions a lot and we're always like, this is so much better than what they're saying is out there. That's like a
Got it.
consistent theme. Not all the time, but they're a little bit like our children, and we think they're sometimes a little bit better than the market sees them in the disposition side. Um, so that's the only time that I'm like, no, you're wrong. Um, And maybe that's a little bit of our whole DLC mentality, and it comes from Adam first sometimes. But
Okay.
that's certainly some difference of
Got it.
a
Um, cool. What, whether it's the your history, DLC, or the market, is there anything we haven't talked about that you think we should?
I don't know. Um,
If not, that's fine. We'll move on. I just want to make sure I cover it. Those are like the three areas that I wanted to make sure we touched on, right? Your story, DLC, and the market. We've hit them. Uh,
I guess the only thing that comes to mind is if I get a platform to say it. Uh, a lot of people like when they say like, "Oh, your father," I'm like, "You can call him Adam." Like I know his name is Adam, and it's like business. I call him Adam because like that's the professional thing to do. Like you don't need to say your father or your dad. Like it's kind of weird. So if I ever get a platform to say that, which I guess this is like please just call him Adam because that's what you would normally do. Um yeah, it's like a weird thing that
so
happened.
you're saying it's weird, and this is a good platform for it because a lot of industry folks do listen to this, and a bunch of people internally. So it'll definitely resonate if they get to this far in the show, which I assume they will. But take it a step further. Does it bother you? You said it's weird. Does it bother you when someone says, when I come down to your office and I go, "Hey, Anya, I was talking to your dad." Does that bother you?
No, that doesn't bother me. It's sometimes like if I'm like out and like trying to prove myself sometimes or like establish myself as my own person, whether that's internally or externally, that like if somebody comes up to me and says like, "Oh, well, your dad is this." And I'm like, "Okay, well that's not making me my own person in a way." So
Well,
that sometimes bothers me, I would say.
have you, I wouldn't have guessed this, my next question, but you kind of led me here. And I wouldn't have guessed given your growth in DLC. But do you feel like you have this like, you're in your dad's shadow at times, and that's like troubling to break free from?
So historically at DLC, yes, for sure. I feel like I've established myself within the organization that people don't see me in his shadow. We're very different people. Um, and so there may be still some people that just have an older school mindset or may not know enough about either of us to make that decision internally. Externally, it's definitely still prevalent, in my opinion, and I still feel that. A lot of that just comes with like growth and being out there and part of the reason why I want to create more of a network to be able to stand on my own 2 feet in a way. People will almost always externally revert it back to Adam.
Interesting. Okay.
I
Well,
would also
really,
say, I'll put it out there that um, it's not, it's a similar theme, I think, about amongst like children in the business and like family businesses. When I
sure.
was younger, like it was a very clear line between Adam and Steve too. Like,
Fair enough. I I think you've created your own lane. I'm not with you at all the interactions where you're facing externally, but I do feel like you've created your own lane. So that said, I think the more you get out there, the more uh
yeah,
your lane will be, outside of DLC will be created for sure. All right. Now we're going to bring it to some fun.
okay.
You ready? I
Yes.
have a bunch of rapid fire questions.
I'm ready.
There's three retail oriented and three not.
Okay.
What do you want first, a retail question or not?
Let's go not.
One skill you wish you had, but one skill you don't have, but you wish you did.
I always wish this. I always wish I wrote well. I do not write well. Um, it's just like part of my background. I I think like I'm writing this beautiful novel in my head, and it is just like never that.
Okay. Well, I think with the advent of AI, that'll improve for sure.
I've made it this far without being a phenomenal writer. I'm pretty sure I'll be okay.
Touche. All right, we'll go back and forth. We'll ask a retail one.
Okay.
What extinct retailer do you wish would come back from the dead?
Um, so I thought about this one, and like the one that always keeps coming back to me is limited to.
Oh,
I don't
good
know if
one.
you ever get that one, Chris. But that was like the I was the peak right age for that, and it was like all the rage when I was like that preteen, teenish kind of age. I'm kind of glad they're not around, but they're around in like a limited extent right now. Because like looking back, it was like not the greatest thing for like teenage girls. And I have two girls, so, like I'm not like you don't really need that, but it's very nostalgic for me.
Got it. Okay. All right. Non-retail. When
Okay.
is the last time you tried something for the first time and what was it?
Last time I tried some oh my gosh. I guess I didn't get down to reading this question far enough. Because I
We can come
don't
back
have
to it.
okay, I'm gonna think
We'll
about
come
it.
back to it. What's the last item over $20 you bought in a store?
So I recently looked because I went to the store on Friday. I went to Target. And it was a kid's birthday present for one of the birthday parties my kids was attending.
Oh yeah, you need like a separate bank account for like a birthdays you're attending to go buy things for the gifts, the amount of birthdays that you have to attend when you have kids of your age and my age and the kids of my age. So I'm familiar with that world.
One of the new trends, my son's now gone to 2 birthday parties, no gifts. I'm like, that's
Huh.
so sad. I like feel bad.
Yeah, I don't think even if that's the trend, I don't know that me and my wife would be on board with that. I can't go to a 7-year-old birthday party and not bring a gift for the kid. That seems insane to me.
Yeah. So I don't want that for my kids because like I loved that, like having a
Yeah.
all the presents. But yeah, no, second
Interesting.
floor. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. What is a widely accepted idea that you don't agree with? Something most people agree with, but you do not.
I like the first one that comes to mind is like not retail related.
Yeah, yeah, it's not a
Yeah.
retail one.
Um, but somebody I I don't baby proof my house. I like
Huh.
I like don't do
Huh.
that. I don't agree with that. I realized that it was like a very jarring comment, I would say in the past like 3 days because came up twice and people were very taken aback. Yeah, no, I
Interesting.
don't do that.
So
I
you don't have the little things that go in the outlets so kids don't stick their fingers in the outlets. You don't have those?
no. I have like we had like maybe one or two when they were in that like crawling phase. Um, and we had the outlets that like close.
Yeah.
Um, in like the dangerous areas, but my philosophy was like you have to learn not to do certain things. And you have to like learn how to walk up and down the stairs and
So no
like
gates on stairs for you.
no. Oh, I didn't want to be like bothered almost in a way either.
Got it. Okay. You mentioned Target.
Yes.
If you and I were shopping at Target and I lost you, what aisle would I find you in?
The diapers. There's one left in diapers. I consistently forget that I have to buy diapers. And unfortunately, the Target that's closest to me does not do drive out for diapers. They'll do it for other things, but not diapers. So I have to like go into the store, get sidetracked, buy a bunch of stuff, and then I'll be there too.
Awesome.
So
Can we go back to the last one? When is the
yeah.
last time you tried something for the first time, and what was it?
Last time I resonated. Think of what I did recently that's different. I mean, I went to a new country 2 weeks ago now,
Where'd you go?
the DR.
The DR.
Hmm.
Would you go back?
Yes, I would go back.
Did you, when you were there, you and I share a passion for food. We have similar palates that people don't realize. So, question,
Yes.
eat anything unique to the DR that you wouldn't get elsewhere?
No, I feel like everything's
No.
so global these days. And we were on a resort, so they
Yes.
catered to Americans.
Got it.
I
Yeah.
could eat plantains 24/7 too.
Me too. I love them. I love them. I love them. All
So
right. Well, Anya, this was fantastic.
thanks
I
for
really
having me,
appreciate it.
Chris.
Thanks for coming on, and keep rocking, and
Sounds
we'll talk
good.
soon. All right.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Appreciate you watching. Hit subscribe. See you in the next one.